Hi everyone, it's Mr. Senti, and you're watching part 3 of a nutritional series. And this particular video is going to be emphasizing vitamins and minerals. And so let's jump right into that conversation. Vitamins and minerals. So the word vitamin itself means that it's vital and that we need to have it. But here's the thing, vitamins are not needed to be consumed on quite the large scale that we need to eat our other nutritious foods like amino acids and fatty acids and carbohydrates. But we need them in relatively small amounts, but still they're vital. And so we need them. And so, when I say small amounts, it's like, okay, we were talking about like 1/100 of a milligram to 100 milligrams per day. And so this is a very small amount. And so here's the thing that I want you to consider when we're talking about vitamins, which is interesting. If you have too little of the vitamin, it can cause problems. And if you have too much of the vitamin, it can cause just as much of a problem. And so that's of consideration. And especially when you consider there's so many different vitamins. So there's about 13 essential vitamins that we've identified. And so you can sort of classify the vitamins as being in two groups, either water soluble or water insoluble or fat soluble, if you will. So the fat soluble ones are ones in which we don't necessarily need to have on a daily basis because they can be stored in the adipose tissue because they can bind with the fatty triglycerides that are present. Whereas the water-soluble ones need to be totally consumed on a daily basis because they're hydrophilic and they could be urinated out. And so we need to replenish them. And so just wanted to discuss, if you will, like a little walkthrough of some of the fat-soluble vitamins and then the water-soluble vitamins. Let's start with vitamin A. So, think about it. What do you know about vitamins? And also, it's like you can think when you're considering vitamins in terms of what they do, what are the overdoses, what are the deficiencies, I would recommend searching out websites which have current information, and then all that detail is available. But this is going to be like a little overview. So an overview of vitamin A. Vitamin A, most common, it's broken up into three parts. There's vitamin A1, 2, and 3. Retinol is one of your more common sources of vitamin A. And retinol is important in terms of, you could see here that it's fat soluble, that it's hydrophobic mostly. And so vitamin A, I find this to be kind of cute right here. Vitamin A can be found in carrots. And one of the things about carrots that we all know is that they're good for our vision. And so that is true. This is an important component in pigments found in our photoreceptors, in our retina. And so it's also important in maintaining a good immune system. In other words, fighting off germs. It's also generally important for all growth and development. So vitamin A, there you go. Vitamin D, also a fat-soluble vitamin. You can see the structure here. And so what it's responsible for is helping the body, and it enhances the absorption of calcium and phosphate. And so we really need vitamin D coupled with our calcium. And how do you like that? We often fortify our milk with vitamin D in order to maximize the absorption of calcium and phosphorus. Also, I just wanted to point out that we're capable of producing vitamin D in the skin with the help of the sun. And so that's important. And so vitamin E, what's the story there? Well, vitamin E is also a fat-soluble vitamin, and it's an antioxidant. And so you might have heard that term before. What does it mean? So generally speaking, of course, this is not the details, but generally speaking, oxygen in oxidation reduction reactions, sometimes oxygen can be a free radical, and the reactive oxygen, because it's an electronegative molecule, or I'm sorry, electronegative enzyme, can actually cause trouble by causing the loss of electrons from other compounds. And so what this vitamin can do is sort of reduce the effects of free radicals of oxygen. So I'm not sure if that cleared it up, but it's an antioxidant and it's very helpful for us. And so we also have vitamin K. And here's a picture of the structure of vitamin K. Interesting with vitamin K is that there's bacteria in our colon, which is our large intestine, that actually can help convert K1 to K2, which is more of its active structure. And you're like, okay, what's the importance of vitamin K? It's very important in terms of blood clotting. And so that it's crucial for that, as well as many others. I'm not going into the big list of them, but if I was going to, I would throw this up. And so here's vitamin A, D, E, and K. And so here's, in terms of major dietary sources. Now, I wouldn't rely just on this in terms of where you would find these vitamins. I would, again, research on the internet to find sources of these things. But functions in the body, as I mentioned, vitamin A is important in vision. Vitamin D is important for calcium absorption and therefore bone growth. E is an antioxidant, which reduces damage to cells. And then K is important in blood clotting. This is interesting over here on the side. When you talk about deficiency, you can say, well, what's happening if I don't have it? Vision problems. If I don't have enough vitamin D, I will develop something called rickets, which is bone deformities, which can be kind of serious, and softening of the bones of adults. So that's critical. You need to have your vitamin D. And then these in blue are extreme excess. And so this can be really dangerous. And so, like, for example, if you weren't paying attention and you were just sort of taking supplements, and maybe even specific supplements like vitamin K pills, you could possibly overdose in that and actually cause liver damage. And so this is a serious matter that you really don't want. They can be poisonous when taken on extreme amounts. And so this is rather serious. So you want to keep vitamins away from, here's a little, shout out, keep vitamins away from children. They don't have a sense of it, especially if the vitamins are desirable in terms of wanting to take it, like gummy bear vitamins or Flintstone vitamins, that sort of thing. Now, the water-soluble vitamins, principally the B vitamins and C vitamins, are really important. And so there's many different kinds of B vitamins, so I decided not to include them. But just in general, they do so many things. And one of the main functions of B vitamins is that they play a very important role in metabolism, which doesn't say very much, but I can be a little bit more specific. There's some crucial functions in aerobic cellular respiration. They can act as coenzymes in metabolic pathways having to do with energy production. Vitamin C, also known as ascorbic acid, is also essential. There's a picture of the structure of it, kind of cool. And again, here's a list of some B vitamins right here. All of these are of the B variety, B complex, and then vitamin C. You may know, I'll just jump over here, you may know that like the deficiency of vitamin C is kind of popular. It's known as scurvy. And you can have problems with your skin, and you can have problems with your teeth and blood vessels as a result of it, and a weakened immune system. A lot of times sailors, this is back in the 1700s, maybe even 1800s, had difficulty on long voyages across the oceans because it's hard to keep fresh fruit, which is a good source. If you look at this, source of vitamin C are fruits and vegetables. And so it's hard to keep these things fresh for long periods of time, month and month and month. And so the interesting story about this is that the British Navy would actually supply their sailors with limes, because those tend to be a fruit that can hold up for a longer period of time. It's not gonna go bad that quickly. And so British sailors became known as limeys because they were quite popular sucking on their limes. And so you could look at deficiencies and extreme excess. And again, here are dietary sources and functions in the body. If you wanted to pause it and take a look at these, you're welcome to do so. And so how do you know how much to take? I mean, again, we have something called the recommended daily allowance, the RDA, and you find this this information on food labels. So the daily value of the vitamin, and it's gonna vary, and it's also going to arouse debate, because you get even the scientific community will debate this in terms of like, well, I think it should be this, and then there's popular debate, I think it should be that, and so these things tend to fluctuate from time to time, and so you have to sort of, stay tuned to the current news. And so really what I want to say is that you have to be careful, because one of the things that we're pretty certain about is that a massive dose of vitamins can confer health benefits is a misconception. And so it actually, if anything, it can actually be harmful, because I was mentioning these fat-soluble vitamins can really stay into the body and cause difficulty. And so I would recommend, if you, again, not a physician, not a nutritionist, I would recommend a balanced diet. This is where I'm going to go with this, and I'll talk about that in a moment. A balanced diet, and if you felt like you were malnourished in a particular vitamin or a mineral, then a simple one-a-day vitamin will cover you. I'm not a big fan of the massive benefits of high dosage of vitamins or minerals. And so here's what I mean about a healthy diet. And it's like, well, what do we know about a healthy diet? So if you're eating a well-balanced, healthy diet, you're not likely to develop any vitamin or mineral deficiencies, because the healthy diet contains vitamins and minerals. How do you like that? So here's this sort of again, the pyramid is another example of nutrition evolution, or succession, I should say, and that it's changing. And so I kind of like that. People get all upset. Well, what pyramid? It's changing. Was it wrong before? No, I think it's being refined. If anything, it wasn't wrong. But I like this one. This is kind of the kids' version of the new pyramid. And it emphasizes the fact that exercise is a major component of a healthy person right here. And so exercise meaning having fun, socializing, enjoying physical activity. Walking your dog, stretching, riding a bike, dominating, playing some ball. But you should be eating a large amount of the pyramid, and you can take a look at this by eating your grains. Again, these are carbohydrates. And so make your grains whole grains if you can control that. In other words, whole grain rice, whole grain breads, that kind of thing. Make sure vegetables are a major component. How about this for good advice? Choose the vegetables you like. And then I would also say, when it comes to vegetables, eat a diverse amount of vegetables, because again, vary your veggies is your little input right here, because again, that's more to do with getting not only vitamins and minerals, but you're varying your proteins, because proteins can be incomplete, but if you're combining them and complementing them, you're going to get all the essential 8 amino acids. That's really important. Look how important fruits and vegetables are. A huge portion of the pyramid should be fruits and vegetables. And so those are really delicious and sweet, containing important B's and C vitamins as well. And then, of course, your dairy is critical as well. Good sources of protein as well as calcium, which is really important. Get your calcium-rich foods, as it says here. And then notice, maybe this is sad for some of you, but meats is not so much. And so meats and beans, again, go lean with the protein. That's a good way to remember it. Don't eat meats that are high in saturated fats. Go with the ones that are least fatty if you have to choose that. And again, I'm not saying to rule it out completely, but just go light on it. You don't need it, as it turns out. You can get your protein from vegetables, as you will. So let's talk about minerals. What is a mineral? What's the difference? Well, the vitamin is kind of these smaller organic molecules, but minerals are these things like calcium and magnesium and phosphorus and potassium and sodium and iron. All of these things ultimately come from the soil. And so they come from the soil, plants take them up, and then they're in the plant, and then they're part of the food chain. And so how much do we need to eat? So from 1 milligram to almost 3,000 milligrams per day. It depends on the mineral, and so they'll vary. So just right out of the gate, calcium and phosphorus are your large ones. So we need that in pretty high, substantially high amounts per day, and so these are critical. Calcium and phosphorus are really important. And then next on the list, though we don't need that much of it, but it is very important, is iron. We need that for this is a little detail, but we need it for cytochromes, which help in the functionality of cell respiration in our mitochondria to get energy. But more importantly, almost, is iron is really important for because it's a component in a big globular protein in our red blood cells called hemoglobin. And so you really need, I'm going to just highlight this because it's kind of important. So you really need iron to produce hemoglobin, because iron is critical in hemoglobin, which is found in our red blood cells, and that's critical because that carries oxygen. So we really need to get iron in our diet. We really need to get calcium in our diet, and phosphorus as well. And so these minerals are, as I mentioned before, they ultimately are derived from the soil, and so they're essential. So the minerals tend to be, responsible for about 4% of our body weight. And of all these minerals, a lot of them are concentrated in our bones and in our teeth. And so it's a good place where they're stored in the body, again, like calcium salts and phosphorus salts, etc. So they do all sorts of really, really important things. So it's a myriad of functionality. But nerve impulses, for example, the movement of sodium and potassium across the neuronal membrane. Muscle contraction, if you're familiar with this, involves calcium. Coagulation of the blood involves, if you will, not only vitamins but minerals as well, and maintaining pH. So these are really important. And so major minerals, I mentioned that calcium is critical. So calcium, which is traditionally found in milk. Phosphorus make up 75% by weight of the minerals, and so therefore are the major minerals of the body. And so some other major minerals are potassium and sulfur, sodium, chlorine, and magnesium. So these are important in our diet. Some trace elements, which are again just needed in more minute amounts but yet crucial, include the iron, the magnesium, copper, iodine, etc. And so these are all very important. And you're like, well, you might be thinking, why don't you go into? I don't necessarily want to go into each of those, but it would increase the length of this discussion if I were to go into each one. So I would recommend, again, taking a look on the internet and sort of just typing into a search engine calcium. What are the major dietary sources of it? I mean, this isn't as complete as you would hope. Where's a great source of iron? And then if you're a vegetarian, you can sort of find where you can locate these minerals in sources other than meat. And so that's a good place to do it. And then I would jot those things down and sort of use that as my shopping list. And this is how you should be running. This is how you should run your life, how you should run your families, or if you can, for a healthy diet. And then again, you could look at deficiencies, and so you can get some real problems as a result of mineral deficiencies. One of the ones I find pretty intriguing that I'll highlight over here is iodine. It's remarkable, but it's not common in the United States. But if you're deficient in iodine, your thyroid isn't able to produce two of its hormones, and so you get an enlarged thyroid called goiter. And then again, you might be familiar with iron deficiency, which could lead to lack of red blood cells or anemia. Okay, so you can look at some of these. They're rather interesting if you have the time. And so one of the things that I wanted to say about these minerals to sort of emphasize is I mentioned how deficiency could be a problem, like for example iron and anemia, but too much iron in your diet can actually cause some serious liver problems. So you have to have balance here, and that's why it's important. And so having excess amount of sodium, excess amount of sodium chloride is associated with high blood pressure and sometimes can cause some heart problems as a result of that. And so, though sodium and potassium are critical in normal function, excessive amounts can prove harmful. So I just wanted to point that out. So you're saying to yourself, what should I eat? I can't really answer that. I don't, I mean, you're going to need to determine this on your own, again. But if you were to take my advice, I'd say eat the things that you enjoy. Especially, I don't think you should ever eat a diet that is healthy and you're not happy with it, like you don't like the taste. There's enough different foods that you could choose something that you like and is also healthy to eat and has all your vitamins and minerals in it. So there's my advice. Choose the food that you like. Don't just eat something because somebody said that it was healthy, because you won't be able to maintain that and you won't be very happy. So it's not sustainable. So how about this? This if you're going to listen to me, I'm going to say this is what I think you should eat. I think you should eat berries. I think berries are extremely healthy. Strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, all of these berries are really critical. They contain vitamin C and they contain a lot of fiber, which is really healthy for, again, not for calories, but for movement of the food through the digestive system. I'd say you eat them every day. I say you eat them 2 to 3 times a day. So load up on the berries. Go strong berry. So citrus fruits in general, your oranges, for example, they contain vitamin C. They have folic acid, which is a type of B vitamin. And the citrus fruits studies have shown that it reduces many different kinds of cancer. And you should eat them every single day, citrus fruits. So go strong fruits. So I put that number 1. Vegetables, go strong vegetables, especially these cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, kale. People are wearing Eat More Kale t-shirts these days. Cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. These things contain very important compounds that are thought to be really healthy in terms of antioxidants and reducing cancer. My one thing is don't overcook them. I would even go raw with them. And you can put them, if you don't necessarily like the taste of them, you can dip them in different salad dressings, although those are sometimes fatty, but you can dip them in whatever if you don't like the taste, but I would eat them raw. I'd go strong with the fish. Fish are a good source of protein. They also are a great source of these omega-3 fatty acids. Again, omega-3 is where there's a double bond, 3 from the end. They're a good source of iron, vitamin B, vitamin D, selenium. I'd go at least twice a week. So you have to analyze this. How often are you eating fish? Flaxseed. Maybe you've heard of this. You can buy flaxseed on its own. You can have flaxseed oil. You can even have flaxseed on your bread. You just look for that in the grocery store. It's there. Again, the omega-3 fatty acids. It has a lot of fiber, the flaxseed, which is healthy. Lots of calcium, potassium, iron, vitamin B, and these ligands, which are associated with the fiber. And so these are really good. So about 2 tablespoons daily. So again, I'm not sure you're consuming enough flaxseed oil, just saying. And then in terms of like beverages, we didn't talk about, there's so much more that we could discuss about how much fluid that a person should take, the water intake. I welcome you to investigate that. And you're like, well, I like water, I like to drink milk. I would go very, very sparse with soda or any sort of sweetened drinks. This is where, if I may, I sound like I'm preaching. This is where America goes bad. We tend to love the soda. Now, on a special occasion, it's fine. But I would go tea. I would go green tea in particular. There's a lot of benefits from drinking green tea. And then in terms of like you're just complementing your food, herbs and spices are always very good to add. Having a diet high in legumes and beans are very nutritious. Nuts are a very good source of proteins and good quality polyunsaturated fatty acids. Olive oil is a great example of polyunsaturated ones. Anything orange vegetable I find is particularly nutritious. Soy foods can be good sources of protein. Tomatoes, again, maybe the most beloved fruit of them all because it's found in a lot of different sauces, and so this is good. I'd go raw tomato. I would chop that up and just eat it. It's delicious. And go organic. Those heirloom tomatoes are pretty good. And then everything whole grain. So how do you like that? And so, again, once in a while you could treat yourself to something sugary and something fatty, but make that a special treat and make sure you've earned it. Okay? So get plenty of exercise, drink your water, fruits and vegetables, and dominate. So I hope you enjoyed part 3 of this video series on nutrition. Thanks for watching.